Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald, just west of Quincy, across the river, at the TNT kart track. You know, they're celebrating the 50th anniversary of this track, and while karting probably wasn't born here, it's safe to say it grew up here. Okay, 50 years ago, Terry Trader, your dad built this track. You were 9 years old, right?
That's correct, Mark.
Okay, so he builds this track, and people haven't seen anything like this track before, because they're used to a little circle, right?
Right. They
He
were
built
used to dirt track, wasn't much asphalt. You know, we went all over the place trying to look for places to run, and so he built a state-of-the-art facility at that time, and that's why we ended up having all these national events at our track, because everybody loved coming
You're
in.
celebrating 50 years, and in celebration of 50 years, you got vintage karts coming in. Now, when you were 9, you were one of the first to race on this track. You didn't know you were in a vintage kart at that time. You were in the state-of-the-art kart,
State of the art, right. Everything was like, if you're looking at some of these old karts out here, everything was straight up. The tires were harder than heck. There was no grip at all, but we knew no different.
Yeah.
So it was just out there for fun.
You had some success in that first year, didn't you?
I ended up winning the first heat race, the first race ever held at TNT, and I still have that first trophy, which is kind of funny, but I still have that thing. I don't know why I kept it, but I did.
Yeah. Now you're still racing.
I actually don't race, but when we have our vintage events, I race 2 races a year. There's a race in Newcastle, Indiana, which the track's owned by Mark Dismore, the IndyCar driver, and then we have the race here. So I race twice a year. I don't practice, I don't do anything, but when I was a kid, I ran hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laps. My dad will tell you I wore out every piece of equipment that he had. so I was, you know, it was just one of those moments in time when I had the opportunity presented to me to do this, and I went out and I practiced at it and became really proficient at it.
Yeah, and then you won some national titles in addition to that first one that
Right.
you won.
I ran 12 national championships events that I won, as well as 2 professional championships. And the professional championships were really neat because those are all the best drivers in one class running for one prize. And we were running for money at that time. So it really was, to win those events, it really made you feel like you were on top of the world, which you were. In karting, you were the #1 driver in the nation at that point. And we had international competitors, and we had them from all over. And when you ran against that group, I mean, these are guys that went on to major league success in other racing, which I could talk about with you and tell you about some of these guys. But, you know, we've had some unbelievable people here come and race as younger people and then move up through the ranks in bigger car racing.
Nice. Now, during this Illinois story, we're going to find out what makes up a vintage vehicle.
Okay.
We're going to see some of these young men and older men going around this track, the kind of speeds they generate. We're going to compare some of the vintage vehicles to one another. We're going to talk to your dad, who's a pioneer in this field and has a long history, built the track, as we mentioned. And we're going to talk to some of these other folks who work on them and build them and all that kind of thing. But first, we're going to show some pictures of you just beating around this track in a very fast vehicle. Let's look at it. Look at that one first.
Okay,
Mark.
Mark.
Is this one here?
Yes. Mark, this is what they classify as a C-open kart. And that is the most powerful karting engine and kart available today, okay? What it consists of are 2 150cc engines.
Okay, these
are your motors right here. And these are 150 cc's here and 150 cc's here, so you have a total of 300 cc's. We have no gears, okay? It is one straight gear with what they call an oil bath clutch, which is right here. This is the clutch. It's like a centrifugal type clutch. Okay, it's bathed in oils to keep it cool. Okay, it goes through really a lot of pain and suffering. That clutch does. It takes a lot of abuse out there. Okay, so it takes a lot of maintenance, and we replace those on a regular basis. Okay, these are what they call tuned exhaust chambers. Okay, now these are 2-cycle engines. Your audience might want to know that we mix. These are running on what they call methanol fuel, which is the same thing that airplanes use, what Indy cars use, and we mix a gas and oil or methanol and oil base together, and our fuel tanks are right there in front. Now, we do not wear any fire retardant suits because in karting there's very little chance of fire. Okay, because we're carrying such little fuel. And these are plastic tanks, there's not a good chance for them to explode or anything like that.
But you are wearing some kind of protective gear here.
Right, we're wearing a suit like you see here from head to toe, that in case we would happen to flip. Now karts are very low to the ground, center of gravity is very low. Usually when you turn the thing, it's just gonna slide on you. But if you would touch one of these wheels of these karts, okay, it will catapult you, okay, and flip you up and possibly flip you completely over on your head and whatever onto the track. So this suit is designed to slide along the asphalt or cement that the surface is made of. Okay.
It doesn't chew your skin up that way.
Yeah, you hope that you're still going. You're still going to hurt. Okay. It's not a pretty thing. So when we're running vintage karts out here, the gentleman's agreement is to don't hit the other guy. Don't get close enough that you're going to, hurt somebody and injure these valuable karts. I mean, these karts have been dug out of barns and garages and things that I don't know why people kept them, but they did.
Thank goodness they did.
Thank goodness. And then they brought them out and they put new paint jobs on them, and they make them beautiful, and they're amazing. They really are. And I think really right now we're probably running faster on these motors and karts than we did back in the day when they were current karts, because we've got better tires or stickier tires type of thing, so we're getting better grip.
How much speed will you generate in this thing on a straightaway, for instance?
This kart here will probably hit 75, 80 miles an hour.
Whoa.
You're developing here. These engines are highly modified. They'll produce about 45 horsepower each engine. So you're talking about 90 pounds on here, and the kart in driver, me in that machine with my helmet and my gloves and all that gear, we're only weighing 375 pounds. So the power to weight ratio is incredible. And if you ask, anybody that has ever driven one of these, it's an amazing ride. It's a little missile. You point it, mash the throttle, and it goes to the next corner just as fast as you want it to.
Now, 30 years ago, were you driving this? Something like this?
This is what I won. Similar kart to what I won the 1982 and 83 professional championships with. This is a Margay kart made in St. Louis, Missouri. It's called a Panther X. And what we're running on this power plant, this is what all the guys ran. This is a 100cc, where the other engines were 150. This is a 100cc.
And a single engine.
Single cylinder, single engine, okay? So the kart's narrower, okay? You don't have any mounting area on the left side of the kart, okay? These handle a lot better because you're not carrying as much weight, and you still have your tuned exhaust chamber, you still have the oil bath clutch, and you have the carburetor, and we are still running the methanol and oil fuel on the thing.
Okay, that one would win though, right? Side by side, same driver, that one would win.
This is a much faster kart, okay? But this handles so much better. But if you take a track which you have longer straightaways like we have here, there's no way this kart would ever outrun that kart there, okay? With the right driver. Now, there are times that I can take this kart and go run against guys that don't have the same experience or the ability that I've acquired over the years, and I could probably beat guys like that they can't get it through the corners fast enough, and I can get a big enough lead to beat them. But generally, if I'm in that kart and then I jump in this one, I can't run as fast as that kart goes.
Time to drop a few names. You mentioned earlier that there are some really famous people that have driven on this track.
Right.
They went, I guess, to NASCAR fame or some other
we've had former NASCAR drivers, Alan Kulwicki, who was a former NASCAR champion, and he was tragically killed in the Hardee's jet going to a race. He used to spend, from his 16, 17, 18 years, he spent about 2 weeks with us every summer, just out here practicing, working on his karts, okay? We've had Lake Speed, who was a NASCAR winner. We've Scott Goodyear, who is a 5-time IndyCar champion.
They started by driving karts.
Yes, and they'll tell you, karting is what trains them to be the best drivers they can be, because karting is the same type of, it's the passing, the driving through the corners, getting in the corner fast, getting out of the corner fast. It's the same thing as the IndyCar. The IndyCar is just a bigger car and a little bit fast, a lot faster, by the way. But they'll tell you the guys that are the best drivers started in karting.
Interesting. Well, thank you, Terry.
Thank you very much.
Well, Gus, the 50th birthday of this kart track, celebrating that this week.
Right.
Back 50 years ago, when you started karting, when you started doing this, built this track, were there other kart tracks around, or were you sort of the pioneer?
There was some small tracks that run on dirt, and this was a high caliber, big time, state-of-the-art racetrack at that time, and it was built that way because it was a half mile. That was no one knew about a half mile track. It was all quarter miles and ovals and that kind of stuff. Most of them were dirt, and this one people had went down to Bowling Green, Missouri, and they had a dirt track, so then they got some asphalt on it. But when this come, I wanted to go to getting track people here from all over the country and come to a first rate class here, and we had we laid this thing out and designed it, and to make it would be a racetrack that you could pass on it and want not to run around the track. People, that's boring to see somebody following one another. We wanted to see passing. There's about 3 shots here that they can get around on this track if you're fast enough. Yeah. And spend that same. Well, we've increased the size of it a little over the years. We've had a couple floods here that really hurt us bad back in '73 and '93. And you know, that was a 500 floodplain that lasted 20 years. So,
right. It happened often Now, you know, you soon, I guess, became kind of a mecca, didn't you, for people who were driving karts all over the country?
Then I got in after the racetrack back in about I'd say in the '80s. It slowed down on the tracks, and everybody wanted to drive in the street races, you know. So we would have. I started running in 1970 in South Park here in Quincy, and we started the first time we had this event. We had 87 drivers the first time. And we had $1,000 in money put up to the Chamber of Commerce so we could give money to winners. And we had, I don't know how many classes we had at the time, but this thing just sprung big. And every year we set this thing as the first Sunday in June, and that weekend. It started out as a 1 day, and then it got to be a 2 day, and even had someone when we were 30 year. We had the 30-year celebration of that. We had 3 days because we had 650 entries for that in the park. That was the most outstanding race that people liked. It was nationally put up in national karting newses, and it was people came from all over the country. I mean, we had some European guys came over to run in this thing. It's well known, it's well publicized by the nation, and But that was one of my, and I ran that thing from the day one, put it together. It'd take a year to put it together. By the time you get sponsors, we ran for money, and the 30th year we had. I got $30,000 in money for purse money. And we had about 12 classes that everybody was getting. Whoever won got $1,500 bucks in it. That was not heard of in go-karting.
Your whole family got involved in this, didn't they? I mean, they were driving or helping in some
Well, I was the guy that was a driver. My son was, I think, 7 when he first started in the karts, and then with the first race, he was 9 years old when he opened it. He was the winner on opening day. At first we held here. He ran the first race in the junior.
In fact, don't you have 3 generations now?
Yes. Of course, I'm 85. My son's 59 years old today. Terry is, and his boy is 31 years. And he's not a karter though. He's been a golfer. He's been an All-American college golf player, and he's taken in the business.
He likes a little slower sports.
And then he's doing the business with his dad now. I'm away from all the business anymore. And we were a big motorcycle deal along with this track here years ago before the flood took everything back in 1993. We had 36,000 tracks here, or 36,000 square feet of buildings here, and the flood took all of them.
Oh, I see. And that's when you run the motorcycle business here.
And then we moved over to Quincy.
Gotcha.
We're down. That's where.
Right.
It's too much danger with this river. Last spring, this flood was out of the river was out of the floods for for 5 months this year before it ever got on the banks again.
Ladybug Faye Pearson. That's
Yes.
quite an interesting nickname.
Yes.
You're a lady racer, or
Yes.
driver, I guess you
Yes.
call them drivers. Huh? And Faye, now I won't mention your age, but if they had an over 80s class, you could drive in that class.
I would qualify for that class,
You're an
yes.
amazing individual. You really are. But you have been driving for a long time, haven't
Well,
you?
I stopped during the 70s and 80s, but I drove all through the 60s, yeah. Uh-huh.
And you come back to this track for this vintage event,
Every
don't you?
year, I love it. I
Every
love
year.
it. It's Gus Trader puts on the best race going around here. He
I'll
does.
tell you,
yeah.
there are more than 100 drivers and a lot more carts than that, because there seems to be enough, maybe 5 carts for every
yeah,
driver.
a lot of them bring show carts. They're collecting, they're restoring. They like to show them off, you know. And they like to have whatever is available. Maybe that's Chelsea for the track. So.
Now you not only drive, but you design vintage carts. Is that correct?
Yes, this is a reproduction of a 1964 and up model, the Bug Sprint. It's exactly the same, except you have to use different tires and wheels now because they don't make those things. But we made this cart, and then the motors all date back to the late 50s. They're McCullough made chainsaws, and that's a McCullough. So they started making kart engines, and they were very, very popular until the foreign engines came in.
I see.
And that's why it mounts here. When you get a Sidewinder, quite often you would have a foreign motor on it. But I raced back here 2 or 3 years in a row a Sidewinder, and it's supposed to be vintage guys, right? Pretty soon they had their kids in and their grandkids in, and they were really hot, you know. So I better move out of the Sidewinder class and move into the rear class. And so I raced the rear class, and it's big,
And it was a lot
class.
faster, huh?
Yeah, and it's fun and everything. And then pretty soon I said, well, I better get out of this class and go in the over 60 class. So that's what I race in now.
In the over 60, huh?
Yeah, in the
Now you
over
come here
60.
from California every
Yes,
year.
yes.
Okay. And so it's a pretty good long trip for you.
Uh-huh. This is my friend Mona, and we fly into St. Louis, and then we drive up here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and we enjoy it. We have a real good
And
time.
so you have somebody with these carts meet you here. You don't bring your carts
Well, I
with
used
you.
to bring it. I used to
Used to bring
get it brought here by some of the California people, but they don't come here
I see.
now. So
Okay.
now I have to rely on somebody that has a bug that I can come, and that's why I'm using Dick Miles.
Gotcha. And that's why you're called Ladybug, is because this is a bug.
Yes, at the very first Grand Nationals, which was in 1959 in Azusa, California, we all had teams. We were big manufacturers, and Go-Kart was the other big manufacturer, and they built the track, and we were just 2 blocks down the street. So in July of 1958, they held the first Grand National Championship for the whole United States. And 3 classes, A, B, and C. So we had a lot of team drivers because they all worked for us, and we were putting out like 300 carts a day for a while. So we had a lot of team drivers, and they would come. We didn't have easy ups. We had umbrellas, and everybody was under the umbrella. I was in the A class. They didn't have weight then, so I had a bit of an advantage. But we always hired little guys to drive too, you know, so lightweight. So I was in the A class. And I broke the track record by 1 full second, never been done before. So all the media came. It was from Hot Rod and Rod and Custom. They were all part of the early karting history. And they were all standing around, and that's when they named me Ladybug. So it stuck. I liked it. It stuck.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. Well, thanks for sharing that story with us.
Okay.
You were a driver yourself
I
for
drove.
a long
That's all.
time. You said
not
you're
long.
85 now. When did you stop driving?
I still drive. Really competitive riding. I quit there after I built this track here. After 2 or 3 years after I built it, I didn't race. Only time I raced would be out of town. And my son and I would go to these places. But I put all the eggs for him. He got to be a world champion, national champion. He won over 17 national championships here, and he won the world championship in Las Vegas. And I put those races on. I put in races in Las Vegas and New York and California. And that was and then all these street races around the area. Within about 200 yards, I'd put on street races for these people.
Hey, I want to show something out. I won't ask you to show it because you don't want to brag. But last night you were given the key to the city by Mayor Spring. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was an honor for me. It was a surprise, and I've arranged to have a lot of these good players, karters, come here from out of guys that have been famous in other racing and karting or in NASCAR. They come here, and I've given keys to the city here. And after we gave Scott Goodyear, the Indy driver, who got second twice there. And in fact, he was the closest of winning it by was only about a foot between Al Unser Jr. And I don't know what, in the 80s or somewhere. But anyway, after it was all done presenting, the mayor said, now we need another fellow worthy of having it, and then I was very proud to get it.
No kidding. I'll bet. You've got, how many entries do you have for this vintage
weekend? We got well over 100, about 110 classes running a day.
Everybody brings their cart, their vintage cart, and of course everybody brings people with them.
Right.
So it's kind of an economic boost, isn't it?
It always is. I've been bringing people to Quincy here for thousands and thousands of people for the hotels.
That's why the key.
Well, I think that was part of what he said too. Bringing the money to Quincy. And then the hotels, the restaurants, the stores, and we have a great bunch of people in this town that really sponsors things. They'll grab the restaurants and the hotels. In fact, even the Missouri Mark Twain Casino, they're a big monster behind us and all this stuff. And it takes that. You can't do this unless you have some help.
Right, sure.
There's no, we don't usually have any spectator fees or any people want to watch, they can watch them. And only the people that come in the pits, they got to pay insurance pass is the only thing.
Well, Gus, congratulations on 50 years and on your turnout today and on all these vintage drivers. It's a big deal, and I want to just say congratulations. Well, Lake Speed, people that know professional racing know your name, but they may not know that before your car racing success, you were a karter, weren't you?
Karting was my background, and that was the only thing I ever wanted to do. Didn't even have any thoughts about professional racing at all. Raced karts for about 19 years, had a kart business, kart shop. We raced all over the country and eventually all over the world. Raced from Hong Kong to New Zealand, all over Europe, all over, obviously all over North America and whatever. And things were doing good, but when I won the World Championships of karting in Le Mans, France in 1978,
all right, thank you guys for
it's kind of like
a beautiful day and
all the goals are met here. What are you going to do?
Wow.
And while I was racing in Europe over there, I raced against a bunch of guys from Europe that wound up going right on into Formula One racing quickly and doing well in it. And I thought, man, maybe I could do something professional racing here in the States. And
first race of the day, we want.
one thing led to another, and we went to a stock car event, and guys offered us an opportunity to test a car, and went and ran, and said, yep, this is what we want to try to do, and 19 more years later, we're still doing it.
Well, let's step up in here because number one, that noise is a lot, and this is your trailer and your carts, right?
Yeah.
You
Actually,
take this around with
trailer
you.
left over from when I was after the stock car career ended with a wreck. When I got all healed up, whatever, a few years later, we still wanting to itch to drive something and run. We found that they had vintage stock car racing too. They got a little vintage stock car racing program. So I went and did that for a year. And those guys wanted to try to spend too much money on their equipment. I said, I'm not going to do that.
Do you design these?
No, this is all 1970s designed equipment. That we can go out and search barns and attics and wherever and find garages. People have the stuff that's been sitting around for years and years and years, and find it, pull it out, restore it, fix it all up, and come back out and have a lot of great memories.
Tweak it, improve it here and there, make it a little faster.
Put a little new technology gets mixed in with them, and it's a great fun.
It's amazing to me that you were a NASCAR racer, right? And we're among the fastest racers in the world. You were racing with the fastest people in the world, and you still get a thrill out of coming out here and getting on one of these go-karts and going around.
I'm going to tell you something. This twin-engine thing right here is the most fun thing to drive I've ever been in my life. The power-to-weight ratio is unbelievable. It doesn't weigh anything. You got about 80 horsepower.
Okay, single
and they're more fun than you can imagine.
I'll be
Try to herd these things.
And for you, it's a family affair, isn't it?
It is now. I've been praying and wishing and hoping I could get my oldest son to get back in it. And he's finally got his kids old enough where now he's willing to take off a few weekends a year and come with me and do it. This is his first weekend to come to the track. He's going to be running a single engine kart where we're just standing beside.
So you get to, the two of you get to travel together and go in and then experience this together.
That's
really neat. And maybe one of his sons will be old enough soon enough to come with you.
Yeah, we do. We've got a grandson that's approaching that age right now.
What is that age? Do you try to move him in around 8 or 9?
Like 7 or 8's where they start them, with the stuff. So he's 8 now.
Yeah.
Get Dad going first, but now we get Dad going, I think maybe we
There you go.
bring the grandson along.
Well, thanks, Lake, and it's a great pleasure meeting you and for coming away with us and sharing your time with us.
We got you.
No problem. Thank y'all. I appreciate y'all coming out and giving us coverage. 'Cause
Okay, next
it's a
class,
great family sport. It's a
single
great
engine,
sport, period.
Sidewinder 6.1
If you want to
American.
learn how to drive, this is a place to learn how
Smart,
to drive.
Viceras.
After this drivers meeting, the vintage races will start. And then later this fall, the track will close down for the season. But one thing else will start, planning for the 51st anniversary of TNT Track. With another Illinois story near Quincy, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
For a DVD copy of this episode of Illinois Stories, send 1995 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, broadcast date, and topic. You may also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605 or by using our secure server by going online to networkknowledge.tv.